Sustainable development. The satisfaction of human needs and aspirations is the major objective of development. The essential needs of vast numbers of people in developing world for food, clothing, shelter, jobs are not being met. A considerable share of world population still lives in a pathetic condition. Even their basic needs are questioned. A world in which poverty and inequity are endemic will always be prone to ecological and other crises also. Sustainable development requires meeting the basic needs of all and extending to all the opportunity to satisfy their aspirations for the better life. Sustainable development is an organizing principle for human life on earth. It poses a desirable future for the human societies in which living conditions and resource use meet human needs without undermining the sustainability of natural ecosystem and the environment. The future generations may also have their own needs and resources to meet. Sustainable development is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. It contains the following two key concepts. The first one, the concept of needs, in particular the essential needs of world's poor, to which overriding priority should be given. The second concept is that the idea of limitations. It is imposed by the state of technology and social organizations on the environment ability to meet present and future needs. Sustainable development tries to bring together the concern for the carrying capacity of natural systems with the social and economic challenges faced by humanity. Thus, the goal of economic and social development must be defined in terms of sustainability in all countries, that means developed, developing or undeveloped countries, or it includes the market-oriented or centrally planned economies. It includes rich or poor, that means sustainable development is the development ensuring the future and preserving the present. Development involves a progressive transformation of economy and society. A development path that is sustainable in a physical sense could theoretically be pursued even in a rigid social and political setting. But physical sustainability cannot be secured unless development policies pay attention to such considerations as changes in access to resources and in the distribution of cost and benefit. Even the narrow notion of physical sustainability implies a concern for social equity between generations, living standards that go beyond the basic minimum are sustainable only if consumption standards everywhere have regard for long-term sustainability. Yet many of us live beyond the world's ecological means, for instance, in our patterns of energy use. As early as 1970s, sustainability was employed to describe an economy in equilibrium with basic ecological support systems. Scientists in many fields have highlighted the limits to growth, and economists have presented alternatives, for example, a steady state of economy to address concern over the impacts of expanding human development on the planet. Major conventions and policies related to sustainable development. There are a number of international as well as regional conventions which brought out the concept of sustainable development. We are going to discuss some of the remarkable steps in this regard. The first and foremost one is Brundtland Commission and its report 1987. In 1987, The United Nations World Commission on Environment and Development released the report of Our Common Future, now commonly named as the Brundtland Report, after the Commission's chairperson, the then Prime Minister of Norway, Gro Harlem Brundtland. The report included what is now the most widely recognized definition: sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The next agenda is the Earth Summit and Agenda 21, 1992. Agenda 21 clearly identified information, integration and participation as key building blocks to help countries achieving development pillars. It emphasized that in sustainable development, everyone is a user and provider of information. It stresses the need to change from old sector-centered ways of doing business to new approaches that involves cross-sectoral coordination and the integration of environment and social concerns in all development processes. Furthermore, Agenda 21 emphasized that broad public participation in decision making is a fundamental prerequisite for achieving sustainable development. Next is the Earth Charter 2000. The useful articulation of the values and principles of sustainability can be found in the Earth Charter. It offers an integrated vision and definition of strong sustainability. The document, an ethical framework for the sustainable development or sustainable world, was developed in Rio Earth Summit in 1992 and launched officially in the year 2000. The Charter derived from the participatory process in which it was drafted, which included contribution from hundreds of organizations and thousands of individuals. And from its use since 2000 by thousands of organizations and individuals that have been using the Earth Charter as the educational instrument and the policy tool. Next is the Universal Declaration on Cultural Diversity 2001. The indigenous people have argued through various international forums such as United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issue and the Convention of Biological Diversity that are 4 pillars of sustainable development, the fourth being cultural, Universal Declaration on Cultural Diversity, that is UNESCO 2001, further elaborate the concept standing that cultural diversity is as necessary for humankind as biodiversity is for nature. One of the roots of development understand not simply in terms of economic growth, but also a means to achieve more satisfactory intellectual, emotional, moral and spiritual existence. In this vision, cultural diversity is the fourth policy area of sustainable development. The World Summit on Sustainable Development 2002. The World Summit on Sustainable Development WSSD on Earth Summit 2002 took place in Johannesburg, South Africa from 26 August to September 4. It was convened to discuss sustainable development by the United Nations. WSSD gathered a number of leaders from business and non-governmental organizations. 10 years after the first Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, it was therefore also informally nicknamed as Rio Plus 10. The United Nations World Summit 2005. The United Nations 2005 World Summit outcome document refers to the interdependent and mutually reinforcing pillars of sustainable development. As economic development, social development and environmental protection became the three basic ideas of sustainable development. Based on this triple bottom line, numerous sustainability standards and certification systems have been established in recent years. In particular, in the food industry, well-known standards include Organic, Rainforest Alliance, Fair Trade, UTZ certified, bird friendly, and the Common Code for the Coffee Community. The next one is the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development 2012. The United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, UNCSD, also known as Rio 12 or Rio plus 20 or Earth Summit 2012. It was the third international conference on sustainable development aimed at reinforcing the economic and environmental goals of the global community. Hosted by Brazil in Rio de Janeiro from 13th June to 22nd June 2012, Rio plus 20 was a 20-year follow-up to the 1992 Earth Summit United Nations Conference on Environment and Development held in the same city. This was formulated to develop a set of future international development goals on sustainable development. Section number 3, the core principles of sustainability. The set of 5 sustainability principles is offered in order to advance and restore some rigor to the underlying ideas. Its development was informed by the number of existing frameworks and was inspired in particular by the work of R. Buckminster Fuller. The principle can receive a specific operational meaning in relation to particular sectors of the economy, development issues, business strategies, investment guidelines, or initiatives taken by individuals. They are expressed in relation to 5 fundamental domains. Number 1, the material domain. The material domain constitutes the basics for regulating the flow of material and energy that underlie existence. Second one, the economic domain. It provides a guiding framework for creating and managing the wealth. The third one, the domain of life. It provides the basis for appropriate behavior in the biosphere. The fourth one, the social domain. It provides the basic for social interactions. And finally, the fifth one, the spiritual domain. It identifies the necessary attitudinal orientation and provides the basis for the universal code of ethics. By their very nature, language, logic and action force, separation, discrimination and choice, a balanced and full integration of all 5 principles are essential here. However, for more conceptualizing and realizing sustainability as a state, the whole set has to be integrated into a single unity in which the 5 principles come together as one. The 5 domains underlying the principles interact and co-define one another, and as a holographic image, each embodies the whole general schemes in its own sphere. When the principles are thus integrated and seamlessly inform choices and actions, a state of sustainability which otherwise appears as a difficult, distinct goal can be realized spontaneously and completely. With minerals and fossil fuels, the rate of depletion and the emphasis on recycling the economy of use should be calibrated to ensure that the resource should not be run out before the acceptable substitutes and available. Sustainable development requires that the rate of depletion of non-renewable resources should foreclose as few future options as possible. Developments tend to simplify ecosystem and to reduce their diversity of species. And species once extinct are not renewable. The loss of plant and animal species can greatly limit to the options of future generation. So, sustainable development requires the conservation of plant, animal species also. The adverse impacts on the quality of air, water and other natural elements are to be minimized so as to sustain the ecosystem as an overall integrity. In essence, sustainable development is a process of change in which the exploitation of resources, the direction of investments, the orientation of technological development and institutional change are all in a harmony and enhance both current and future potential to meet human needs and his aspirations. Section 4. Components and types of sustainability. The major components and sustainable developments can be discussed very briefly. Establishing ecological limits and more equitable standards. This requires the promotion of values that encourage consumption standards that are within the bounds of ecologically possible and to which all can reasonably aspire. Next one is redistribution of economic activity and reallocation of resources. Meeting essential needs depends in part on achieving full growth potential, and sustainable development clearly requires economic growth in place where such needs are not being met. Population control. Though the issue is not merely one of the population size of distribution of resources, it is a problem of sustainable development also. Sustainable development can only be pursued if demographic developments are in harmony with the changing productive potential of the ecosystem. Sustainable development must not endanger the natural ecosystems that support life on the earth. The atmosphere, the water, the soil and the living beings should be preserved as it is. There should be more equitable access to resources. Growth has no set limit in terms of population or resources or beyond which lies ecological disaster. But there are ultimate limits and sustainability requires that long before these are reached, efforts are made to ensure that equitable access to resources to all. Carrying capacity and sustainable yield of resources should be considered. Most of our renewable resources are part of complex and interlinked ecosystem, and maximum sustainable yield must be defined after taking into account a system-wide effects of exploitation. Retention of resources. Sustainable development requires that the rate of depletion of non-renewable resources foreclose as few future options as possible. Diversification of the species is another fact to be intended here. Sustainable development requires the conservation of plant and animal species. Minimize adverse impact. Sustainable development requires the adverse impact of the quality of air, quality of water and other natural elements are to be minimized so as to sustain the ecosystem overall's integrity. Types of sustainability. The first one is environmental sustainability. It refers to sustainability in the ecological and other environmental parameters. Environmental sustainability is the process of making sure the current process of interaction with the environment are pursued with the idea of keeping the environment as pristine as natural possible based on ideal seeking behavior. Thus, environmental sustainability demands that society designs activities to meet human needs while indefinitely preserving the life support system of the planet. This, for example, entails using water sustainability, only utilizing renewable energy, and sustainable material supplies. The second, social sustainability. Social harmony is the main concept here, and it can be referred as ability of the community to absorb inputs such as extra people for short or long period of time and continuing functioning either without creation of social disharmony as a result of these inputs or by adapting its functions and by relationships, so the disharmony created can be alleviated or mitigated. Next one is cultural sustainability. It refers to the sustainability in the cultures or the cultural aspects related to tourism which are existing or being mitigated. Economic sustainability. Sustaining economic viability is the basic concept in this. Economic development has traditionally required a growth in gross domestic product. This model of unlimited personal growth and GDP growth may be over. Sustainable development may involve improvements in the quality of life for many, but particularly for the affluent, may necessitate a decrease in the resource consumption. The last module, need and significance. It is to be noted that each person took into account the effect of his or her action upon the others, but each is unwilling to assume that others will behave in this socially desirable fashion, and hence all continue to pursue a narrow self-interest. Communities or governments can compensate for this isolation through laws or education or through taxes or through subsidies and other methods. Most important, effective participation will be there in decision making. Local communities can help them articulate and effectively enforce their common interest. Interdependence is not simply a local phenomenon. The rapid growth of production has extended to the international plane with both physical and economic manifestations. There are growing global and regional pollution effects, such as in the more than 200 international river basins and large number of shared seas. The enforcement of common interest often suffers because areas of political jurisdiction and areas of impact do not coincide. Energy policies in one jurisdiction cause acid precipitation in some other areas. The fishing policies of one state will affect fish catch in some other areas. No supernatural authority exists to resolve such issues, and the common interest can only be articulated through international cooperation and international understanding. As a system approaches ecological limits, inequalities sharpen. Thus, when a watershed deteriorates, poor farmers suffer more because they cannot afford the same anti-erosion measures as richer farmers. When urban air quality deteriorates, the poor will be in more vulnerable areas. They suffer more, their health will be damaged than to the rich. When mineral resources became depleted, latecomers to the industrialization process lose the benefits of low-cost supplies. Globally, wealthier nations are better placed financially and technologically to cope with the effects of plausible climatic change. The settled agriculture, diversion of water courses, extraction of minerals, emission of heat and poisonous gases to atmosphere, commercialization of forest, and genetic manipulation are some of the examples of human intervention on natural systems. Until recently, such interventions were small in scale and their impact was very limited. But today's interventions are more drastic. Their scale and impact also will be drastic. They are going to more threatening to life support system both locally and globally. This need not happen. At a minimum, sustainable development must not endanger the natural systems and support life on earth. The atmosphere, the waters, the soils and the living beings should be preserved. Hence, our inability to promote the common interest in sustainable development is often a product of the relative neglectance of economic and social justice. The world must quickly design strategies to fetch sustainable development paths. This will require policy changes in all countries with respect to both in their own development on to their impact on other nations' development possibilities also. We recognize that poverty, environmental degradation and population growth are inextricably related. And it is clear that none of these problems can be successfully addressed in isolation. Arriving at a commonly accepted definition of sustainable development remains a challenge for all the actors in the development process.